The Federal High Court in Abuja on Thursday invalidated the People's Democratic Party primary election that produced Asue Ighodalo as the party's candidate for the forthcoming governorship election in Edo State. Justice Inyang Ekwo held that PDP's primary, held on February 22, 2024, failed to comply with the provisions of the Electoral Act 2022 and the party's constitution. The presiding judge said the exhibit tendered by the party lacked evidence and held that the ad hoc delegates, through the exhibits tendered, were able to establish their case against the defendants. He faulted the Independent National Electoral Commission, which did not file any process during hearing of the matter, insisting its impute would have made it easy to address the matter. 3 aggrieved ad hoc delegates, led by Kelvin Mohammed, on behalf of 378 others, had sued INEC, PDP, its national secretary, and the vice chairman South as first to fourth defendants.
The court has held that because the PDP, which is the second defendant in this case, has refused to comply by its own electoral guidelines, section 50, 36 of its own constitution, and the provisions of section 82 and 84 of the Electoral Act, its ad hoc delegate congress of 4th and 5th February 2024, the court just declared it as a nullity for the exclusion of 378 ad hoc delegates who were duly elected and who have been so accredited by the party, but were excluded. The implication of this is that PDP has no candidates.
This honorable court did not make any order nullifying the primary and the election of Dr. Asue Ighodalo as the PDP candidate who won that primary election by 577 votes. What the court said is that some delegates were excluded. And don't forget that those delegates under section 8414 have no locus to question the primaries, having not been aspirants in the primaries themselves. And so I must say it again with every sense of responsibility that counsel, especially the counsel for the delegates, must be wary because it stands the chance or the opportunity of being arraigned before the disciplinary committee.
I have used the word consistently that authentic delegates voted for me. I used the word consistently. The people that I saw at Samuel Ogunagba today were not delegates. They were staff of government. I said that. So as far as I'm concerned, this judgment is for democracy. This judgment is for Edo people. And Edo people should know that by the grace of God, together, we will take our government back from outsiders. Outsiders will not have space to rule us. We need good governance.
Well, that was former Deputy Governor of Edo State, Philip Shaibu. And for more on this crisis, we are now being joined by Debo Ologunagba, the National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, with a special focus on what course of action the party needs to undertake going forward. Thank you for joining us this afternoon here on Newsday.
Good afternoon, Hawa. Thank you for having me.
So
Thank you to Mitope.
So what's your reaction to the judgment? It's a lot of confusion in the air, even as your party insists that Asue Ighodalo remains the candidate for your party. So was the primary nullified? How are your party's members interpreting this judgment?
Thank you very much once again for having me, and good afternoon. Well, first of all, PDP is a party of rule and of law, and we're very conscious and we're very respectful of court pronouncement on every subject matter that goes to court. All right. Clearly, some professionals, and that's very important, we must emphasize that. The professionals, particularly lawyers, a lawyer must not win every case. As an officer of the law, is to assist the court to come to a just conclusion or just decision on any matter. For this matter, we must put it on the platform where it belongs. Number one, in line with what we declared after studying the initial study of the judgment yesterday, there was no declaration, there was no nullification, of the primary election victory of Dr. Asue Ighodalo. So he remains legally the candidate of the party, having been duly nominated and duly sponsored in accordance with Section 177 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, the issue as to the delegate election. Again, we say generally in law that you can't build something on nothing and expect it to stand. The law, particularly the Electoral Act 2022, Section 84, subsection 14, was very clear. And it is to prevent frivolous application and rush to court. That was why the legislature, in its wisdom, inserted that section, that subsection 14. And it clearly states who is entitled or who has the rights and has the locus to approach a court if any of the processes with the party guidelines have been breached or the Electoral Act has been breached in the course of nominating a candidate and subsequently the sponsorship of that candidate by a political party. Clearly says that an aspirant to that election. A delegate is not an aspirant. It is so very clear. And that's why it's important for the public to know that when professionals who have a duty of assisting the court to come to a just conclusion begin to muddle the water and misrepresent facts to the public. The fact is clear. There was no nullification, there was no disqualification of the process and the candidature of Dr. Asue Ighodalo. Our press statement yesterday was very clear on this. But it's important to re-emphasize that in Edo State, the candidate of the party who has been duly and was duly nominated and is been duly sponsored by the People's Democratic Party as for the governorship election in September. So these are the facts, and we just want to let our members know in Edo State. The challenge is that they're trying to kind of distract the people and confuse them, because a lawyer has no reason, and we are not joining issue with any lawyer, but we're saying a professional has a duty to assist the court, particularly lawyers, to come to a just conclusion. So, in conclusion, Dr. Asue Ighodalo, who has been widely and is well accepted across the length and breadth of Edo State, remains the candidate, and we know he's coasting to victory. That's why we have this distraction. And people coming to say he's been disqualified. It was never disqualified. The court never says so. The court only says some people who have no locus. And you see, it goes down to the jurisdiction of the court. If an individual has no locus to bring a case before the court, then the court cannot assume jurisdiction, but again, that's another matter. Where a law-abiding, we will study the judgment and will take appropriate action to ensure that the victory that we see in Edo State, that nobody can distract the people of Edo State from continuing to enjoy the dividend democracy by the track record and the achievement, monumental achievement in every sector of the economy by the governor of Edo State, presently Governor Obaseki.
Now, Mr. Ologunagba, thank you, for that clarification. You talked about the fact that the court did not make a declaration. You said there was no nullification. You also talked about the Electoral Act 2022 on the role of delegates and that lawyers, should guide the courts to make the right pronouncement. You've said everything that the judgment did not say. What exactly now did the court say? If the court did not nullify, the court did not talk about the delegates, then what exactly is the ruling about in your own understanding?
No, the court spoke about the delegates, that some delegates were excluded, and on the basis of that. So, but we are saying the issue is not even whether they are excluded, it's whether the court. Yes. That was the allegation of the people. In our statement, we said no legally elected delegate was denied the access. Now, again, before you even talk about the right of those individuals, can they validly come to court? Do you want an interloper to go to court?
That's another. What you are bringing up is another conversation entirely on whether they have the right to go to court or they don't have the right to go to court. We are talking about this present judgment that we received yesterday. I'm trying to understand exactly what that judgment is, since, from all the interpretations we have, you definitely do not agree with it. You said there was no nullification, there was no declaration. So what exactly was that court judgment about?
Yes. Okay, fine. Like I said earlier, I'm a lawyer, and like I said, our party is very conscious and respectful of the rule of law.
What is the judgment? What did the judgment say?
Sometimes the judgment is the fact that our position, that's why we study the judgment and go on appeal. The judgment did not nullify.
Why are you appealing if the judgment did not nullify? The judgment did not nullify.
We're going to appeal the fact that the judge, the appeal will be based on the fact that that court ought not to have even entertained that case, because the source of that case is not legal. It's not within the law. The individual cannot just go because he feels excited to go to court or probably being sponsored and then go to court and say you nullify a particular election that took place. This election was held before the INEC. INEC was monitored it.
I thought the court did not nullify.
It was in the public glare.
I'm getting a bit confused, Mr. Ologunagba. I thought the court did not nullify. Now you're talking about the fact that they do not even have the right to go to that court. Why didn't you, file an appeal? Why didn't you file a stay of execution, a stay of motion, all the while that this was going on? Why wait until now to now tell us that what the court said is not what it means?
This judgment was...
Go ahead,
Just hold on a second.
Okay.
So you can understand, we can have a conversation. Number one, you referenced this judgment that came yesterday. Why did I not file a stay? I have said to you, we're studying that case and we'll take appropriate action. If a court has no jurisdiction in the first instance to take a case, then it is dead on arrival. And that's the point. We must understand that. The section 8414 was inserted particularly for a case like this, where people wake up one morning and because they are being sponsored one way or the other, or they get excited with the process and say, oh, we're going to disqualify. You saw people dancing yesterday. Why? They're dancing because they thought there had been disqualification. There was no disqualification. What the court said, some people were denied the opportunity of voting. And the court says, if you are a voter and you don't have an opportunity to vote, assuming without considering that it is correct, you can approach the court. It is the man who is an aspirant who says, hey, this individual perhaps would have voted for me, and they didn't vote. So it is not for the aspirant who are busybodies, and the court ought not to have entertained that. So we will study the judgment. As a party, we will take appropriate action. It is to the fact, number one, that the court ought to even entertain that because it's diversionary, it's against the law, and they have no locus, and that is clear. So whatever is said about people going on justice and saying disqualification, that does not amount to disqualification, and that's the point that we're making as a party.
I guess a lot is misconstrued and confused when speaking legalese. But what will be the basis of filing an appeal? As I assume that the PDP will be filing an appeal to this judgment. What would be the basis? Under what basis? And if the primaries were declared to be null and void, how much of a catastrophe would this be for the PDP?
Well, thank you very much. I'll start with the last question. Number one, I don't deal on supposition. Suppose it is declared, because it will not be declared. And the reason is because we are a country of law and order. We expect that the court will follow. Number two, you asking me what is the reason of appeal. If there's a judgment, even if it is a wrong judgment, that is why the process of appeal is embedded in our court system, in our judicial process. If a court ought not to have taken an action, and it has come to a conclusion one way or the other that is not consistent or that is not agreeable to us, the only cause of action, which is in tandem with the rule of law, is to appeal and say, yes, my lord, at the higher level, can you please review this action or the decision of the court which was taken without jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is the cause for every action. You can't be a busybody. It has been established that local standard is the beginning of a course of action. If you don't have a locus standi, the court cannot be, it's actually ceased of taking action or taking that case on. Now that it has been taken, and like in law we say the learned justice erred in law, because we would approach it, say be disciplined about it, be humble about it, but be vociferous with respect to how to defend that, because the court ought not to have taken that action, because those people lack jurisdiction, the locus, and the court lacks jurisdiction to. So that's what we'll be appealing to, say that this court ought not to have taken that action because the cause of action has no locus. And I think that's what the appeal court will have to decide. But in the meantime, and I'll re-emphasize, Dr. Asue Ighodalo remained the candidate of the party. He was validly nominated. He was validly sponsored by the PDP as governorship candidate for our election in September.
Now, I'm sure you saw the clip, from the former Deputy Governor of Edo State. That's Honorable Philip Shaibu, who says the court's ruling, vindicates his earlier statement that the PDP did not conduct a proper primary election. What's your reaction to this?
Well, like I always say, I don't want to join issue with Comrade Philip Shaibu. Is a man I respect, but he's very wrong here. The primary election was conducted at his designated public space, Samuel Ogbumedia Stadium. It was witnessed by INEC as expected by law. It was witnessed by security agencies. All these agencies wrote reports that it is in the public domain. So if in his opinion, which is entitled to, that it vindicates his position that the election did take place, well, he's entitled to his position, but we don't agree, because indeed, all these processes were in the public domain. The relevant statutory organization to monitored it, and they wrote their report. But hiding on that pretext that some delegates, according to him, were not allowed to vote, would be inconsistent with what is happening. And then for us, I don't think this should be democracy. We should expect that people, when you contest election, and you don't win, you should be gracious enough to understand that, yes, you have to sustain the democratic principle. And then it will be wrong to come to say it is now validating his position that the election took place. The election took place. And the good thing was that Arise covered the process. You have the records in with your system.
And just to interject for the sake of time, yes, you're right. Correct. We did cover the process, but we do remember that the process was quite chaotic, with 2 parallel primaries taking place at the same time. What role does INEC play in all of this confusion?
Again, that's very good. That's very important. INEC is critical to this. INEC will give you, because they have a process, they have a role to play in any primary election. All right? INEC comes to indicate and confirm the venue. They will write to approve that, yes, they're coming. And they came. The one that will be legal will be the one that is monitored by INEC in the INEC designated centers, monitored by other security agencies. The fact that somebody goes to his bedroom to conduct a primary in the court of a name or comma primary does not make it the one. It is the one that INEC monitored, that reports were given, that collation took place, polling took place, accreditation took place in the public glare at the designated center that becomes the root. And that was the one that happened at Samuel Ogbumedia Center, the stadium. I do not know which other one happened anywhere. If anybody claims that there was a parallel primary, then show the evidence. We don't have that. We as a party, we are in charge of our primary process to be monitored by INEC and other agencies. And when we do that, what we do is to ensure that we are meticulous in strict compliance with the Electoral Act, with our constitution and guidelines that governs that primary election. We did that in Edo State. I mean, we just believe that politics should be more, we should begin to improve on the way we play politics. The fact that the election does not go your way does not mean you should throw away everything. The Edo State people deserve more than this. They deserve an issue-based conversation. They need that. And they know that the people who are complaining, the APC, the sponsored people, they know that in a contest between the candidate of the APC and the candidate of the PDP, the light years apart. There's someone who is so articulate, who has a record, who has been on board of, who is an accomplished businessman, accomplished lawyer, a man who is savvy, who understands the connection between people and, in fact, to invest in people so that you can produce more and have a better economy for Edo State. They know they can't have that conversation. And what you do deflecting, and then that is what we have today. PDP is ready. We're campaigning. They are not campaigning. We are working with the people. We have a manifesto that we're discussing with people. And then, suddenly, people jubilating that there is disqualification. What disqualification? We follow the due process. We follow strictly the law as expected of us. And we have a very, very confident and a very, very persuasive program for the people. And they can latch on the performance of the present governor, and then they can move the state using a man, a technocrat, a businessman, a banker, chairman of several businesses that are successful. That's what you need to bring in people that quality, and that's why they are afraid of. We are ready for them, but this matter is dead on arrival because we know it, that on appeal, the court will be very clear to say, no, these people ought not to have entertained because they have no locus. And that is the beginning of any action in any court of law.
Well, Mr. Debo Ologunagba, it's always a pleasure to have you on Newsday. And of course, we look forward to the outcome of the appeal when you eventually do file that appeal. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.